tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is author David Campbell and couturier Colleen Quen. David Harrington Campbell was born on New Year's Day in a little teeny town called Galax, Virginia. He left that little town for the big city after he earned a degree in philosophy from Thomas Jefferson College in Michigan. He came to Hollywood seeking fame. What kind of fame were you seeking at that time?
Oh, I don't know. I was young. It was the 70s, and I just wanted to be famous without doing any work. And I quickly found out that, you have to do some work to get famous.
You had a face, and that was it?
Yeah, I just wanted to run around and be famous. I was 18, and
especially philosophy. What were you going to do with that?
Well, I hadn't finished college yet. I went to 4 colleges, and I went to my first college, and after that, it was a little small college in Virginia.
Oh, so you went back and forth?
And then I went to Hollywood when I was 18, 19, so I was very young. And so after a year out here, I decided, I've got to go back east. So I went to Penn State. So I went to a little college in Virginia, Southern Seminary, and then Penn State, and then finally got a philosophy degree from Thomas Jefferson in Michigan.
I think that's really diverse because you ended up being famous by being a dancer. I mean, you went to Seattle after you were seeking your fame, and you found your fame in Seattle. How did that happen?
Well, I was going to school in Michigan, and I had a great teacher from New York, and she was about 5'4". But she was a very good teacher, and I'm 6'4", and at the end of when I graduated, she said, you really need to work with a tall dancer. There's a man in Seattle named Bill Evans, and he's 6'4" or 6'5", and I moved out to Seattle to study with him.
Why did you think you were going to be a dancer?
Well, I just started dancing when I went back to college.
You weren't classically trained, obviously.
No, I wasn't. Actually, when I was 5 years old, a lot of people don't know this. In fact, I often forget it. I took tap with my sister when I was 5 years old. So I did do a little tap dancing growing up in Virginia, and just found it again when I was in college, and studied with Bill Evans Dance Company. And in the late 70s, early 80s, Seattle was a great town for dance, still is.
It's a wonderful theater town.
Great theater town, great town, period. And I performed with a lot of small companies after I trained with Bill Evans.
Oh, is that what happened? I mean, you just went in at 18 and started training? You didn't need any other specific background?
Well, no, I trained in college with this woman whose name I forget.
Oh, you were working with her, and that's where she sent you. I see.
I actually got a philosophy major with a minor in modern dance.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, because I wondered where the dance came from. I mean, I know you're an author, and I know you did a lot of dance, but I didn't realize that it had started that early. It started at 5.
Started at 5, took a break.
Actually, your writing started at 10.
Right, it all started.
You were very young. You just didn't know you were doing all these things.
That's right. I was just searching,
So here you were, the 5-year-old tap dancing, and then you became pretty well known for your dancing and the companies you were with in Seattle.
Well, it was a good time also, Joan, to be a male dancer, because it's very different now, but in the late 70s, early 80s, there weren't that many men dancing. They were actually begging men to dance.
Well, then did you take dance class every day when you were up there?
Well, I did, every day.
And then did you take ballet and?
Ballet, when I studied with Bill Evans, ballet and tap and jazz and modern, but he focused on modern, and that's what I was
And he did the choreography and?
Yeah, he did, and other people in the company.
I see.
I never performed with his company, but I did, other little dance companies that sprung off. I performed with them.
So you were, your 5-year-old tap dancing led to your 20-year-old dancing. Now you have the 10-year-old writing books. That's leading to a little bit later in your life writing. You wrote a story that I thought was very charming at 10 years old. Tell us what it was.
It was about a little boy who was kicked by a cow around the planet, and he took flight around the planet, and he just never wanted to land. And I remember somebody read it in my family and just really praised me for it. Praised me for it, and I really appreciate that. I remember that from that long ago, that this was very inventive. But the main thing was the little boy didn't want to come back down.
That's cute.
He wanted to stay in orbit.
And when you were in Seattle, you moved to an island.
Little island called Vashon Island.
And you wrote A Dog's Life?
I was working on A Dog's Life there and starting to write short stories.
Mm-hmm. And you also got the King County Commission
Yeah, I won
award.
a short story award for the best short story in King County, which is where Seattle is, and Vashon Island.
It's the
I believe
arts.
in 1984.
It was for the arts,
yeah,
right?
King County Arts Commission. That's when I also wrote a script that was a finalist at the Sundance Film Festival in 1987.
Oh, I see. That's how you got there. Were you taking classes? Or
No,
you just went
a friend
to
of
the
mine,
festival?
a friend of mine, Colleen Patrick, and I we were writing actually a script for Cagney and Lacey, and we just started working on. She was working on a script, and I thought, well, I'm going to write a script, and I had a friend, and he and I started a script based on the Stonewall riots in New York, factually based, but a fictional story based around that, and. It later changed the name to A Full Moon in Judy Garland's Funeral, and Sundance was very young again in '87, not like it is now.
So were you thinking of an independent kind of, eventually being an independent movie?
Well, again, I was just kind of chasing a dream. I really loved this story. I liked writing screenplays. It was long before they had all the screenplay software, and it's so much easier now, You had to set 12 indentations on your typewriter to get it all done. Now you just
do that and it's done.
All done for me.
So you continued to write then when you were on that island?
I did mostly write on that island because there wasn't much else to do. It
But
rained
did you
a lot.
support yourself as a writer?
Well, I was very fortunate when I was born on New Year's Day.
Yes.
My grandfather gave me a mountain.
Oh.
I know it sounds a little Walton-esque, but it's true. He gave me a mountain just because I was born. My mother was his only child and a daughter, and he really wanted a son, and so I was born, and so hallelujah, there's a grandson at least, and here's a mountain. And it supported me. It was a large mountain, and it supported me, really up through now.
Were there things on it?
There were 3 fresh springs, trees,
really?
And I sold it in my 20s.
Oh.
And that just so I sort of have a sideline of real estate going on. But thank goodness my grandfather Harrington gave me that mountain because it helped. It gave me a lot of freedom.
We talked to actors and we talk to authors, and they're always waiting tables, and they're always doing something extra to keep them going while they're, being creative. So that's a new one. My mountain kept me going.
Yeah. I hope nobody editorializes about John Boy Walton.
So actually the first novel that was published is Dancing on the Cellar Door, which is what we're going to talk about today, this novel. And dancing, of course, is you dancing. I mean, we've got dancing in there. And then we have the story that's kind of mysterious. Tell us about it and when you wrote it and how you physically wrote it is what I'd like to know.
Well, I went to the Santa Barbara Writers Conference a lot during the late 80s and early 90s. And I went to a pirate workshop there and read a very long short story. And Shelley Lowenkoff, who's at USC now, took me aside and said, "You need to write a novel. That last short story I read was 45 pages. He said, it's getting a little long in the tooth here, these short stories. And so I started writing a novel, and it turned out to be this novel. It had another title at the time, but it was these characters were born out of that experience.
So the short story is what compared to the novel? Not the length of pages? Or the development of your characters, or?
It's the development of the characters and the themes of betrayal, which I think everyone can relate to. Almost everyone in this novel has been betrayed by someone they love, and they work through it and they come together in that way and help. It's a fun novel. And where the dancing fits in, to answer your other question, is I believe that, I believe words have a rhythm, like music.
So that's...
And certainly that's how I write anyway. And my words do, I hope, dance across the page. That's my goal anyway. And have a rhythm.
That's very interesting. I think the idea of dancing on the cellar door also has a movie in the back of its mind.
It does. It very much does.
I know Carol Wells Doheny and her husband, art gallery owner Jerry Vanier, have been very involved with you. In what way?
Well, they threw me a wonderful book launch party here in LA in October at their penthouse over on Wilshire Boulevard, and it was a great turnout, and I got to meet a lot of people.
As far as developing it for a film?
Yeah, there were producers there and directors, and it was just a great send-off. I mean, I feel very fortunate. This is my first novel to have had such a big send-off for a first novel.
I see.
And they very much supportive. Carol, I've known Carol for 20 years. I met her at Santa Barbara Writers Conference.
Oh, I see. And she's been in show business for a long time, so
yes.
She really knows where to go and what to do. I figured maybe you two would be producing this together.
We might very well. We might very well.
But we're going to keep our eyes open, and we're going to look to the future with you, David Harrington Campbell, and your mountain, and see this on the screen.
I hope so, Joan.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And don't go away, because we'll be right back with couturier Colleen Quen. Her dress is here, and this chair on the set was designed by her husband, Rick Lee, and it's called the Colleen chair. So we'll see you in a minute. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is designer Colleen Quen, who lives in San Francisco and drove down to the studio today to be interviewed. She has a Bachelor of Science from Cal State University at Hayward. Hayward, isn't that a technical school?
It is, Joan.
Does it have anything to do with fashion?
Not exactly. I went to the extreme. I guess I had to find, I have a yin and the yang side, and so I was going through the other side of my, I guess my yang side.
You actually, from high school in San Francisco, went to Hayward?
I know. Well, actually, I'm an East Bay girl, too, and I grew up in Alameda.
But
I know. I don't know how to explain this. Maybe it's because my mom's side was very artistic and my father's side was very engineering, electronical engineering. So I also had both sides of that.
But you did go to Fashion Institute of Design.
I did, in San Francisco.
And when did you decide to do that?
After I got my degree, I immediately went straight to fashion design. And the reason is because I started when I was young, when I was 5 actually, but I decided I want to get back into fashion. This is my real true calling, and this is what I love to do. So
did engineering or anything that you learned at Hayward have anything to do with what you work?
Definitely it has. In fact, it has helped me to be a couturier. Because everything has to do with measurements. In fact, when I measure the body, it has 36 measurements.
And let's go into that, because you apprenticed with a French couture designer.
Couture. Yes, and she came from Paris, and she has her haute couture degree.
And she was in San Francisco?
Yes, she was.
Oh, I thought you had gone to Paris to do that.
No, actually, she is in San Francisco, and she's the only one in the United States that I was able to share. She shared her art with me.
What's her name?
Her name is Simone Sethna. And again, she came from Paris, and she had her haute couture degree, which is the ultimate degree in fashion design. It's almost like Givenchy.
Did she have students?
Yes, she did. She had private students, and there would be about like 5 students at a time, and it was one-on-one. And I
Really?
studied with her for 2 full years.
How could she have enough to teach you in 2
Oh,
years?
it's so intense. I would study. I studied the body for 2 years, in fact, in design proportion, as well as sleeves, skirts, the dress silhouettes.
All from her?
Yes, all
Not
from
back
her.
in classes in college or anything like that?
I learned the American method as well, FIDM, in San Francisco.
uh-huh.
But after that, I decided to study French couture, and that's the ultimate.
Did you
the
learn
best.
to speak French?
I didn't have to, actually, because we spoke in English and everything was one-on-one, so we didn't have to work out that way, too.
Were you designing while you were working with her?
I was, in fact, I was working at the Gap.
Oh, really?
I know. And I was
Oh,
at
that
the
was
head
a really good thing.
I-
French student.
and then mass production as well. So I had a background for 10 years actually in the fashion industry, but I wanted to get back and get my master's in couture.
Oh, I see. So
And
tell
so-
us what couture is.
Couture?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, couture is sculpting on the body, and it's calculations. It's actually
It
designing.
doesn't mean one of a kind.
It does mean one of a kind. It
Does
can
it?
mean one of a kind as well. Actually, it's working on the body, sculpting on the body, draping on the body.
Which you learned.
Yes, I did. Yes.
And I think the great thing was one of the things that I read that you said that you learned how to steam the seams open.
Yes. Not only steam, but shape it too and mold it so that I'm using silks and I can shape it and
As you're
ease it in.
steaming?
Yes, and shaping the body and the darts of it so that it disguises.
It
There's no
doesn't ruin
scars.
the material, the steam?
No, there's an art to it too as well.
Is that so you have to know? But
Yes.
is that where the technical qualities
Yes,
come in?
it is. It's the technical, the engineering, the pattern drafting as well.
So you're a certified couturier,
Yes.
but not an haute couture.
No, unless I went to Paris.
And then
But I've-
what's the difference? Tell us that, because that's pretty interesting.
Actually, I am qualified as a haute couture if I went to school there, but instead I did, go to school with Simone. So she shared the haute couture, I guess you could say, qualifications as well.
So
I
if
studied
you
with
went
her.
to France now, because you've studied here, how long would it take you then to?
Probably just to get my certification a year.
So it's like a degree?
Just to get review. Yeah, so that I have my certification. That would be official. And then I would be the same collaborating as the same
And
qualifications.
at the same caliber.
Exactly.
So if someone is in France and they
Yes.
get that certificate,
Yes.
then do they go to work in a couture house?
Definitely they could. They probably can go to any, like Balenciaga or Givenchy, all the masters, Gautier, Lacroix, and you can work for them, or you can also just start your own and just have your own couturier.
But that's
and
pretty
salon.
hard, isn't it?
It is, definitely.
What was your first big break in design?
I would say probably Patricia Sprinson. She was a socialite and actually in San Francisco, and she was a patron of the opera. And she saw my work, and she started to actually commission me to design her opening opera gowns. And then from there, it started blossoming, and that's how I got recognized with my work.
And then when did Neiman Marcus come into the formula here?
Well, actually, Neiman Marcus is open to working with me, but we're still negotiating on.
You did some scarves with them? Did you do that?
No, I
you-
didn't actually. I didn't
I
though.
see.
Yes, my work is mostly for, I guess, opening operas or
Oh, I see.
opening events, special events.
Special events,
Yes,
because like, what
exactly.
do we call them? Red carpet events?
Yes, that is definitely something that I do.
And before you can do anything for a red carpet event, the other thing I read is that you make a body map.
I do.
What's a body map?
Body map. So again, I would take 36 measurements of the body and calculate it. And it's almost like a draft. And then from there, it's the body shape.
You write them down.
So
you
it's
draw 'em?
this whole engineering, it's, doing in fractions and calculations in 1/8 and 1/16, and I would draft it out. So that's where the technical part comes about.
And then, so if I come to you and I say, or I'm a celebrity and
Right.
I'm going to an award party.
Yes.
And I want you to make something for me.
Right.
How do we start?
Well, first I would actually talk about you and your personality, because I'd like to know your spirit. And I approach design in a way, though.
If I'm a really well-known person,
Oh,
you
definitely.
know who I am, but you
Right.
still would.
I still would like to know your spirit, because that's how I actually design. I design from within and come out. So I figure out actually what you like, your likes are, and your personality is. And from there, let's say if I started feeling your personality, I would start designing some sketches. And these would be some concepts I would approach probably. I would show you Well, these are like, this is one outfit I would want to have you in, or this piece here. So I'd give it like maybe about 3 options.
So you draw these and then call me back?
Exactly. And then I would also propose colors to you as well, which is your design proportion as well, and your color scheme. But I would go about, and actually I work with a lot of companies from France, and Solstice is one of the places that I do.
So you can pick any of these colors?
Yes, and I would actually work with them. I would say, well, let's see here. This is a color I would really recommend for you for this event, because this is a red carpet event, and this goes great with your color and the theme, etc. So this is how I would go with my process.
And then what? And then next, what happens? I say, okay, I want the one that has the square neck.
Exactly. So let's say we go for that. I said
you have it right on top.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is the piece, and this is my flower collar. And when this comes about, I would actually start measuring you. So I would take your 36 measurements of your body.
Oh, once we, okay.
Yes, I would start actually measuring your body. And then I would do a calculation and a draft on your body, the shape of it. So it's a pattern piece.
What about the fabric?
And
then
the fabric,
we just use any fabric, or we use a heavy fabric?
Well, first I would just do a muslin.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, we would do a fitting on a muslin to make sure everything is perfect fit before we actually go into the real fabric.
Okay, so how much time do I have to give you to do this? My event is in 2 weeks.
Exactly, and I actually have something that's happening right now that's happening. So actually, it may take a good month.
Well, what am I going to wear when I have to go to this thing in 2 weeks?
Well, that's the good thing about it, though. Let's say if there was a piece that you liked in my collection, I immediately have already a pattern piece, pattern design, so I can just kind of, transform it into that, which is really great. So in that instance, we can do that within 2 weeks.
Oh, you can? Okay,
yes,
good, because really I need to have it right away. The other thing that I think that I learned reading about you was that you are like an architect, the way you drape. You're like an artist.
Yes, I am too.
And you're like a painter, because look at this.
With my colors. This is my earth dress.
Tell us about this.
Definitely. This is actually one of the elements. My husband is a furniture designer.
Yes, you made this chair. Yes. We talked about it.
I know, it's so wonderful. And flowers, of course, is my theme. This is the earth element. And I hand embroidered all of this as well, but this is all in silk organza. And this is mimicking earth. I guess you can say a flower pot. And instead of, my first original thought was to put real flowers into the flower pot dress, but instead I decided to put hand embroidered flowers on here. So I hand embroidered all of this. And you can see the gradation of the colors from dark to lighter green.
And here we have a real person in it, right?
Exactly. And actually, even a ballerina actually wore this for a photo shoot to dance in too.
And then I think this shows another person in it.
So again, it's very sculptural, it's very architectural, it stands on its own.
And can somebody actually walk in it and move and sit?
It's so amazing, Joe, and I wish you could try it on. Because actually you can even lift this up and make it shorter, and you can make it as pockets. I've had a woman wear this, and she put this as pockets, like her little purse.
How great.
So and when she moves, it just kind of adulates, and it just moves in a really interesting way.
This was what we were talking about.
Collar.
This was the drawing that you showed us.
Exactly, it is.
And this is somebody in the dress. So we have the drawing. Why don't you hold those two together?
Definitely. And this is where I sculpted the collar as well. And this, again, I'm inspired by flowers.
Turn it that way.
I'm inspired by flowers, and you'll see the movement of the flower, of the shape of the flower on the collar. So
and
it's
the
very
collar,
organic.
and we have that hanging behind us. So it just is like a flower pot with your head coming out.
Exactly.
Now, on the set, we have this huge piece. I don't know how.
This is my
you have
art
to be
piece.
7 feet tall to wear this.
Well, actually, I designed this for a musician. She's a koto player, and she was
sits.
and she was 5 feet.
Koto, don't they
She's a koto player. And
so what is this just?
And she performed on this on the stage, and it was just like amazing, illuminating with light fixtures. This has 900 triangles. If you can see all this.
I was going to see how you get these little puffs.
And each little seam is actually boned. And it's seamed.
That's why it stays out?
Exactly, and you'll see the gradient of the design where it gets bigger and then smaller. So all the triangles have to be divided up so that they're sewn separately.
Let's show how that...
Definitely. So you'll see that this is again in design proportion. So it becomes larger to smaller scale.
I think I can show it better.
Oh, great.
If I have this photograph over here.
And there's my piece right there. And I was inspired by her music, actually. Her music.
So even in this picture, it's like hanging on the floor, like making a little train.
is. Exactly. It's almost like a lantern.
It's so fabulous. And this, can you
Thank
do this in
you.
any kind of fabric?
Yes, and do you know this is washable?
Oh, that's hard to
And
believe.
this is great because she traveled this to Germany, so she had to scrunch this up, and it's wrinkle free. I mean, you can scrunch it up, and it bounces back.
Actually, you can see the stays in it,
Yes,
which is like
exactly.
a construction. This is like your construction.
Exactly.
I don't know if it shows. Yeah, it does show
And you
through.
can see
so
the
those
boning
little
through
white,
there.
the bones through it.
Exactly.
Well, have you done stage work other than this? Is part of stage,
stage
work.
work.
What
I've-
about theater?
I have well, actually, I've worked with ballets, Alliance Ballet in San Francisco, and I worked with ballerinas. That's probably the closest that I've gotten with stage so
I think
far.
the other thing that's interesting is that Perrier-Jouet had a contest.
Oh, yes, it was actually, I was chosen to be selected to design their 100th anniversary gown for their bottle, which is the Blanc de Blanc. And
Do you have a
Vivica,
picture of it?
I do actually.
Oh,
But
it's
it's
no.
right there. But Vivica Fox was chosen to wear my gown, and so I specially Couture designed a dress for her, sculpted on her body, and I hand embroidered these flowers from the Perrier-Jouet champagne bottle. It was
it
just
like,
amazing.
because of those beautiful white flowers,
Yes.
like these China
Yes, it was.
Chinese lilies, aren't
Exactly. And so I embroidered that, and it was
they? Did you do the embroidery yourself?
I did. This is my embroidery as well.
This is embroidery.
Yes.
This is
what I
kind
used
of
to
stitch.
This is a chain stitch, what I used to do when I was 5 years old. Remember, it was really hot
Right.
during the 70s.
And then what about the circles?
And the circles are just like little cording that I just circuit
I
to make it
see.
a little more oval and strong.
I see.
But it's
I
very
see.
graphic.
And so, what happened with your Perrier-Jouet dress?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Did they keep it?
Well, Vivica kept it,
Oh,
which is really great.
Vivica.
I'm totally honored with that. It was wonderful to work with her, but it was unveiled in New York. And we had a little ball, the ball de fleur. It was a ball, actually, and they unveiled the dress there.
Well,
which
we
was
have to
wonderful in New
leave.
York.
We don't have any time. But do you cook?
I do.
Do you cook for Rick Lee?
I do when I can.
And what do you cook?
Macrobiotic, actually.
Oh, do you? Mm-hmm. Both of you?
I do. Rick actually cooks Chinese food. He's an excellent cook.
So you can't give us any recipes because we don't have any time.
Oh, Joan, I hope there's a next time.
Okay, you'll have to cook next time we come to San
Thank you,
Francisco.
Joan.
Thank you, Colleen Quen, and thank you for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. Keep writing to us at 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 917. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.